This one's for you Ping fans out there. There might be some confusion in the air. When the G440 line dropped, they kept the G430 10K MAX in the line.
Yeah, the 440 is an extension of the line, the new one, and different, but it doesn't replace the 10K, right? The 10K is for a different person and different parameters.
That's the goal of this video, to educate you on the difference between the G440 MAX versus the G430 10K MAX. So confusing with the names, but
yeah, it is both Maxes. But
yeah, clear that up in this video. So we've got some robot stuff to share with you, and we've got some data too. So the robots tests, two tests. First one we're going to do is like the real golfer that's out there. We're going to hit 6 degrees left. We're going to leave the face 3 degrees open to the path, and we're going to hit down on it 3 degrees. So it's going to hit this squirty
standard
cut.
slice. Yep.
Yeah, kind of a standard slice. Yep. And we're just going to kind of look at those numbers. Just going to hit one shot. That's the fun test. Then we got the serious stuff, the stuff that Dr. Tom Mace has looked at and graphed for us. We're going to look at 100 miles an hour. 2 degrees up, and then we've hit it off center, 3/4 of an inch either side.
Right.
So let's take a look at the average golf swing test first. We've got the 430 10K MAX in there, and let's hit that one. Pretty good. Look at that smash factor. So we got 1.46 smash factor out of that.
Pretty good.
There's a calf.
6 outs near the end is, not insubstantial. It's a fair amount.
Yep. 2,500 RPM, a sniff underneath that, and launched at 8.3, and that's just, it's only a 10.5 degree head, so we're crashing down on this thing. That's what a lot of people struggle with out there, right? They're hitting that low fade, and you need something to, get it up in the air.
Get up in the air, because you're basically getting down on it and across, so it's a side swipe. So yeah,
and more
it does a pretty good job to considering. That's not a great golf swing.
Okay. 16 degrees of tilt, and we'll kind of talk about what's good and bad once we've hit the 440. So next up, 440 MAX, not a 10K version, but still pretty high MOI. We're going to snap it on exactly the same shaft, so it's apples to apples. So if you remember on the last one, the 430 10K crossed the center line.
And this one did not.
Didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
So we've got similar ball speed, and we're going to comment on one other thing. Backspin was a hair lower, okay, kind of interesting. 11 degrees tilt axis, that's 3 degrees less than the 430 10K. And what distance we'll have a look at. So let's jump into the graph, and then we'll talk about club speed. So you can see there that it's a lot straighter than the 430 10K in this test.
Well, it's less fade bias.
Less fade bias in this test, yep. And then club speed, a little bit faster than the 10K. Tell us.
Yeah, well, it's basically what they're trying to do anyway with this club. I mean, Ping has been known for the last forever, more or less. It's the most forgiving driver out there, and they have been. I mean, year in, year out. And 10K is obviously no exception to that. It's probably the most forgiving driver we've ever tested as far as how high an MOI and everything. Now, higher MOI and deeper CG tends to lower ball speed a little bit, and that's the offset you get. So what they're trying to do with the 440 MAX, the new one, is get as much ball speed as possible. So Ping's always been kind of knocked for losing ball speed, and you do. It's a trade-off for forgiveness. So it's basically not quite as forgiving as the 10K, but you get still more ball speed out of it.
Yeah. So let's look. The other thing they did with the 440 is they made the head a little lighter and the shaft a little longer this year to try and get more out of the player.
And we actually noticed that on our stuff too. We didn't change the robot settings at all, and because it's a slightly lighter head, the club's moving a little bit faster.
Tiny bit faster. Even on 100 mile an hour, it picked up 1 mile an hour.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
So let's jump into some numbers, and then I'll let Mark do the graph, because I think the graph almost tells a bit of a better story. Lie angle is a little bit flatter in the 430 10K than it is in the 440. So in my head, more draw bias in the 440.
Right.
Just as theoretical. 300 points more stable in the 10K heel to toe.
Right.
Which we expect. It's a higher MOI product. CG, they threw an 1.25 inches back, and we talked about this off camera. They're both the same, and they probably do that for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably as far back as you can get to some extent without, a lot of other things going bad. Now, what's interesting to me is my guess is the 10K is a little bit lower CG.
Yeah, and you're talking about this way, from crown to sole.
Yeah, right, not so far back, but actually lower, because it does launch higher and spin less.
Yeah.
And when you're above and higher away from that center of gravity, you lose a little bit of ball speed. Yeah. So, its advantages, higher launch, lower spin. Its disadvantages, lower ball speed. Yeah. So if you launch it high enough to begin with and spin it low enough, you're going to get more out of the MAX, the new one.
The new 440.
Yeah. But if you struggle with hitting the center and stuff, I mean, forgiveness-wise, the 10K is still the way to go.
Yeah,
right?
And we can see that on the next three lines here, basically, everything you just talked about. And now if you follow our channel and you've seen the driver, old versus new, not that this is a test because they're both current, but we're talking about if we see more than a mile an hour gain from model to model,
Right.
pretty significant at
Oh, yeah.
100. This
Huge.
has got 1.4 miles an hour faster at 100 miles an hour from the 440 than the 430 10K, and that's exactly what you just said. We're going to see increased ball speeds in the 440.
And that's what Ping was trying to do this year, right? Like I said, their knock has been they're not the fastest driver out, and this is to combat that. And it seems to have done.
They've done a good job. And then exactly what you just said, maybe lower CG, lots of things going into it, but the 430 10K launches at 13 degrees and spins at 2200, and the 440 launches at a hair under 12, so a degree and a half less,
Right.
and spins at 2600. So they are just different launch and spin animals.
Yeah, like I said, I'm guessing the CG is actually a little lower in the 10K, which, you know, when the CG doesn't align with the ball, you don't get quite the ball speed, right? So that's the difference.
Yeah, and that's kind of a myth that we'd like to dispel, is that people think that these big drivers are always high spin. This 10K
is not. No, that's a really good point too. You know, the 10K you think, you know, is really designed for the higher handicap, you know, super reclaim performance. But, you know, there's a lot of tour players. Marty from Ping, who's a really good player, plays in, you know, some USGA events and stuff. I think he's been playing it back and forth, and it's a really good driver, you know, especially if you don't need, you know, distance isn't your most important thing. You want to keep it in control, and you spin it too much, you know, it's still a really good driver. It's not, you know, replacing it. There's different.
Yeah. And I'm going to breeze over these last three numbers quickly, and then you're going to tell us the real truth behind it. But essentially, we had draw tilt, a tiny bit of draw tilt on the 430 10K, ball tilted to the left, and a little bit of fade tilt on the 440. But if you look at the heel-toe drop-offs relative to the center strikes, they're almost identical. A couple of yards from the toe and more like 10 or 12 from the heel.
Right.
But the graphs tell a better story.
Yeah, the graphs definitely do tell a story. You know, dead center, obviously, with the new one, is a tiny little circle. I mean, it's
Super
great,
consistent.
fantastic. Yeah, so really does work well there. And if you look right and left too, you know, the 440 MAX, the new one, you know, tends to be a little right.
Yeah.
You know, again, somebody who struggles with fading the ball, you know, you're probably going to look at the 10K MAX.
Or you've got the adjustability in the 440 with that weight.
Right, now that's another thing we've got to actually do a little testing on later. And see how much it really does change these things, because I'm guessing it, you know, especially when you're using a pretty good sized weight like Ping has in the back, you know, moving it side to side is going to change it quite a bit.
I think they talk about 7-yard increments when you start nudging the weight around. So that would basically get us to a wash on this chart.
So yeah, so if you're looking for the same directional stability that you have with the 10K, you'd have to have the other one in the heel.
Yeah, put the 440 weight in the heel, and then you'd get the same flight bias.
Right.
Theoretically, same flight bias. And then we see that the 430 10K goes a little longer in this test because it just nails the launch and spin for 100.
Yeah, and that's based on the robot setup, right? I mean, you could kind of fine tune that. Obviously, with a little bit more ball speed, if you dialed in the launch and spin, the 440 MAX would win.
It's going to win.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that is where I want to shut it down. Like these two drivers are still current. 440 has its benefits, 430 10K has its benefits. We hope we educated you there on which one you should be picking. Probably you should be trying both in the bay.
Absolutely. I mean, they're both very similar to some extent, you know, so they're definitely worth trying.
Yeah. And that's the story. Go and get fit at cool clubs or a worldwide golf retail location. Give us some feedback in the comments. Tell us which one you're playing. I'm sure there's a bunch of you out there who've got the 430 10K and kind of thinking about 440. So let us know what you did. We can't wait to hear it.